Tipping is a practice that should be done by choice, not because everyone else does it. I just stumbled recently onto a post about the tipping in America. Everyone in the comments were having mixed views, while there were a few that were adamant that anyone who is against tipping is stupid. In my opinion, tipping someone is a very fucked up culture. If it is done due to the customer feeling like service is an unforgettable one, tip by all means. But it seems like in the US, tips are a must even if you get good service, shitty service, or even if you get good service but you just don't want to pay so much for service, e.g. you have a bill of $200 and you're required to give a tip of 20%. Even if a service is top-notch, we shouldn't be required to pay $40 just for service when that $40 is enough to pay for another meal in itself. In the post I previously talked about, a lady kept saying, if you refuse to tip, you can just go to McDonald's. I feel that's a stupid statement. We're customers, not your employers. We go there to eat, not for the service. All we need is for you to take the order and to bring us our food. That's all we want, that's what you're getting paid for. Most waiters and waitresses feel entitled to get tips when it's not the customer's responsibility to give you money, all because you're not being paid enough. What difference is that from begging? They should be mad at the employer, not the customer. This is something the government should fix, not something the customer needs to do to make things less shitty.
I don't mind tipping in the traditional sense. I get that restaurants and other service industries can pay drastically under minimum wage. What does bother me is that tipping has been extended to cover other simple transactions. Like at the coffee shop, for example. I'm increasingly getting agitated that I get an iPad turned towards me to add a tip when literally someone just poured coffee. Or when someone just hands me a to-go container of food I ordered.
I've always kind of felt this way, but when reading up on etiquette before my wedding I was appalled. I'm supposed to tip pretty much every vendor? And even more so, I'm supposed to put the money aside and hand it out the day of before I even know how they did. I have no problem tipping for a job done exceptionally, but the expectation of extra payment for doing your job really irks me, especially as someone who works my ass off in a job that not only doesn't get tips, but literally are not allowed to accept cash gifts, healthcare.
Has anyone experienced being around others who tip regardless of service? I was with two coworkers not too long ago at IHOP. We were the only ones in there because it was before 7 a.m. The server barely spoke to us. Didn't utter a smile. Once our food was out, we didn't see her again until we were standing up ready to pay. She didn't refill our water or ask us how everything was or if we needed anything else. We could see her standing in the back doing nothing. I didn't tip, but my other coworker did because she said, well, maybe she is having a bad day. Okay? I work with the public daily, and even when shit is going on with me, I still do my job. Anyone have any thoughts on it?
Thought it was a popular opinion, but judging from the comments I guess not.
Japan has no tipping. Great system.
A lot of servers don't report cash tips either, so they aren't being taxed. I wish we could just get this subculture out of the dark ages. Do away with tipping and pay a market fair wage.
This sub needs a tipping megathread.
It's such bullshit from the part of restaurant owners to give their employees a decent fucking wage. I mean, charging your customers for food and your employees' salary? Here in France, there's no tipping system. You can leave an extra euro or two, or round up the bill, but no way is it obligatory.
Have you gotten the "they don't even pay minimum wage" argument yet? I utterly despise tipping. But I do tip well for good service. One waitress just got me. Didn't have to ask for anything. She put order, delivered it, asked if it all looked right, refilled drinks without us saying a word, and thanked us as we were finishing up, and she gave us the bill. No unnecessary chit-chat. Not fluff. Did her job and disappeared until she was needed again. The entire conversation was placing our order. Yes ma'am, you too. I came to eat and talk with those I came with, not the waitstaff. 50% tip, usually about $20. And ask for her anytime I go back there.
Welcome to Europe.
I would prefer to be able to tip the people who actually cook the food. I can walk up to the counter and get the food myself.
When tipping goes away and waiters are paid minimum wage or more at nice restaurants, the cost of your meal will increase too. Everybody on this thread that hates tipping would also complain about that. We're not cheap. We just have principles.
Put the damn drink machine out for the public and I'll get the drinks myself.
Literally the opening scene to Reservoir Dogs with Steve Buscemi being like fuck tipping and everyone telling him he's an arsehole XD.
I feel sorry for you Americans, you guys have made this a norm unlike here in England.
Okay, I understand that you're trying to be nice, but tipping was invented so they can pay servers less than minimum wage. The country would be better off if we give them stable pay and ban tipping like every other job.
Hard agree. It's a shit situation, but that's on the employer and the local labor laws, not the customer. Rather vote to change it instead of perpetuating a system of shaming people into paying more than the service is worth.
Employers should be required to pay their employees properly, then this would be an issue.
Why tip someone for a job I'm capable of doing myself? I can deliver food, I can drive a taxi, I can and do cut my own hair. I did, however, tip my urologist. Because I am unable to pulverize my own kidney stones.
Mr. Pink, is that you?
Who does it because everyone else does it? We tip based on service. You give me shitty service, 8 meters closing giving you a 2-cent tip. You give me exceptional service, I'll hook you up.
Tipping should be eliminated outright, and employers should pay better wages. This will reflect on the prices, but at least it's out there in the open. The fact is, a lot of people who rely on tips are just greedy, and know that their racket results in them making more money than other equivalent jobs would land them. Reddit has infamously circle-jerked hospitality as some sacred job because it's in a lot of people's self-interest to perpetuate this.
The only people who still support tipping culture in America are servers who can make more than minimum wage on a good tipping week, and employers who want to keep severely underpaying their staff. This really isn't unpopular.
Just raise minimum wage, you cretins.
In other countries like Malaysia or Singapore, they have something called a service tax which should go towards the service staff, and you only tip if you want to. The tipping culture in the U.S. is as stupid as Columbus discovering America.
Not unpopular, especially on Reddit.
Servers should just be paid a normal hourly wage and tipping should be done away with and should just be an addition if the customer wishes to give one on top of their normal salary. Also, when you go to a restaurant, you are going so you can be served as well as the food.
I hate the idea of tipping. Tell me what the damn thing costs and I'll pay that. I'm not supposed to be responsible for paying your employees. I like tipping as a means of thanking someone for exceptional service. But tipping as a requirement completely kills the original sentiment and just makes everyone uncomfortable and unhappy.
I saw this post too. I left a comment saying I leave bad, below average waiters a 5 to 10% tip, average, good ones 20, and great ones a little over 20, but some girl replied, calling me a piece of shit for not tipping over 15, cause the waiter could have been having a bad day. But the fact is, it isn't the customer's fault that they're having a bad day unless the customer is a jerk, but that's another thing. I personally don't think it makes sense for someone giving lousy service getting the same tip as someone giving good service. You can't be an asshole and just expect people to tip well.
Adam Ruins Everything does a great explainer of this. Basically, the US tipping system is fucking stupid, but while the system is in place, you have to tip because servers are relying on that as part of their pay. They wouldn't have taken the job if they knew they wouldn't be tipped. Why don't they just pay you a normal amount of money and make the food more expensive? When you buy a pair of jeans, they're just $50, they're not like, that'll be $40, and you decide if the stock boy eats tonight.
So here in America, we think socialist policies such as a minimum wage are communist, and in our purely American capitalist government we decided it was acceptable to pay servers $2.13 an hour, yes. You read that right 20 cents and 13 cents an hour, you think mandatory tipping is stupid? Yeah, so do fucking I. But I still tip because in a lot of states your servers may even make a minimum wage, they absolutely have to rely on you tipping to even reach the national minimum wage, let alone any sense of a living wage. Source.
Yes, but this is unpopular opinion only in us.
What we do and don't tip for is always horribly disjointed. We know it's expected for sit-down restaurants, but for other things, it's hard to know. Some things I have to frantically Google to see if I'm supposed to tip or not. I worked in a tux shop, where for some wedding couples I'd hold their hand for 30+ minutes helping them decide what tux, shirt, tie, vest they want for the wedding and retrieving endless items for the groom to try on. No tip. Meanwhile a waiter can take 10 seconds to say 2 burgers coming right up and gets a tip. It's different because tips are expected in the server job and not in the tux shop, but it shows we're clearly not tipping based on service.
Thank God you posted this, I was worried nobody would post this opinion today.
This is an popular opinion in literally every country outside of the US, and this isn't unpopular opinion.
You're right. But you get idiots defending it. I've even had someone say to me, if you can't afford the tip you can't afford to go there. Get a grip.
You know what this is? It's the world's smallest violin, and it's playing just for the waitresses.
You should not tip unless the service was exceptional. If the waiter signed on a contract for less than minimum wage, that's their problem. I am here for a meal and not public services.
My all-time favorite is "We live off tips." If you can't afford to tip, you can't afford to eat out. Nope, I specifically picked a job where I'm not banking on the goodwill of the public to pay rent. You decided to roll the dice on those Good Friday nights. If you want a tip from me, give good service. I'm not stingy about tipping, but I'm pretty miffed of this culture that tries to shame me because I saw my server once the entire evening and had to go find my own drink refill.
Keep tipping though, my fellow Americans. It's fucked up that restaurants force the guests to pay the employees, but servers make $2 an hour.